Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Minimalist Podcast, where we discuss what it means to live a meaningful life with less. My name is Joshua Fields-Milburn.
And I'm Ryan Nicodemus, and together, we're the Minimalists.
We've got Malabama here.
Hi, everybody.
TK Coleman.
What it is.
We've got a very special guest for you today. We've got the rest of our team here in the studio as well. Coming up today on this free public minimal episode, we're talking to a listener about wealth and money clutter and her reservations about investing without a purpose. We also have an outstanding lightning round segment, a live stream question, and a listener tip for you. You can check out the full 3-hour Maximal edition of episode 388, where we answer 4 times the questions and we dive deep into several simple living segments. That private podcast episode is out right now at patreon.com/theminimalists. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free because advertisements suck. Let's start with our callers. If you have a question or comment for our show, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call, 406-219-7839, or email a voice memo to podcast@theminimalists.com. Our first question today is from Alita.
My name is Alita. I'm from Salem, Oregon, and I'm a private podcast subscriber. Minimalism to me means letting go of attachments to things, to ideas, to anything that's cluttering up your life and preventing you from living a full and happy life. But I'm unsure of how to approach a minimalist mindset around investing. Investing, by nature, it would seem, is an accumulation in order to amass wealth specifically. And because of the nature of investing, putting money aside into an abstract and nebulous market and gambling that it's going to earn back more than you originally put in seems to be accumulation without a specific purpose, at least to me. I don't have wealth, so I would like to invest for retirement because I don't plan on working until noon on the day I die. But let's say I did have wealth. Let's say I had all the money I would need in a lifetime. What is the purpose of investing then? To build financial security for my children? They'll already inherit whatever I have. Do people who support a minimalist lifestyle invest? If so, what are they investing for? What is the mindset regarding that if they don't need any more money for survival? Is it simply an attachment at that point?
Alita, what a thoughtful question. And I can't wait to hear a different perspective on this. Joining us in the studio right now to help us tackle this question is Ramit Sethi. He has a brand new Netflix series out. Actually, it comes out tomorrow on April 18th, and it is called How to Get Rich. Now, we're going to unpack that, Ramit, but ladies and gentlemen, Ramit Sethi.
Oh, yeah. Dude, so happy to have you, man.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for having me back. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Last time I think you were out of studio.
I was out of studio, yeah.
So it's awesome to be here with you.
Yeah, man.
And love the upgraded studio. You guys are absolute pros. You're an inspiration to me.
Oh, stop. That means a lot coming from you, man.
It's awesome.
What year did you publish that?
The original version of I Will Teach You to Be Rich came out in 2009 at the bottom of the recession, March 2009, literally the bottom.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. And then I wrote that one with the black cover is an updated 10-year update. So that came out in 2019. And then this journal came out very recently.
I want to talk to you about the journal. So we've got I Will Teach You to Be Rich, the journal. And I'm going to start with Alita's question here. And if I go to page 7, I had this marked specifically. And in here you talk about, because her question is like, what am I saving for? And I agree, money becomes clutter if you're just saving for the sake of this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But here in the journal, and I really enjoyed this because finance, there's an emotional side of it, but there's also the mechanical side. And you help people with both sides of this, sort of the psychology behind money. I'll hold it up if you're watching the video version of the podcast. But this journal, it gives you prompts that don't just help you with the emotional side, but actually help you with the mechanics. And I think Alita's question is fundamentally about the mechanics of, okay, what am I saving for? Because if I'm just supposed to squirrel away money, but I don't realize why I'm doing it, well, then what is any of this for anyway? And so here on page 7, you talk about defining what your rich life might be. And it could be packing up your kids' lunch, or picking up your kids every day from school, right? Or buying $1,000 cashmere sweater. Maybe that's what a rich life looks like to you. Or maybe getting anything you want from Whole Foods without ever worrying about the cost.
Yeah.
Not having to look at the price tag and say, oh, wait, the other one's 30 cents cheaper. And now all of a sudden I'm constantly worrying. And there's a type of mental clutter that this type of financial burden creates within us. You say, taking your family on an unforgettable vacation where they can go behind the scenes at Disney World with cast members, or buying an extra phone charger for every room in your house, right? What your rich life looks like might be different from your neighbor's rich life.
It should be. It should be. Your rich life should be vastly different than mine. And I bet it is. So when I start off talking to people about money, I do not start by saying, tell me about your Roth IRA setup. What's your allocation? Nobody cares. Okay. I ask them, what's your rich life? And pretty much everybody gives me the same answer. I want to do what I want, when I want. I go, okay, I gotta play this game. I go, so what do you want? Silence. Because we're not really taught to think about what our rich life is. We treat money as a burden. Oh, I should save. And sometimes just for fun, I go, why should you save? They go, because, they told me to. I need, and then what happens is people go into logic. I need it for financial security. I go, that's true. How much do you need? More. How much? $1 million. I go, isn't it different if you live in LA or Manhattan or Ohio or, And so we have this part of our brain that tells us we should be logical and save, which we probably should, but we are deeply emotional about money. And then we try to ignore it. We try to cover it up like emotions are weakness. Actually, I think that I get a lot of joy from being able to go to a restaurant and order appetizers without looking at the price. You know why? Because when I was a kid, we could not afford appetizers. So that's meaningful to me. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I get a lot of joy being able to travel. And I'm a hotel guy. I love really nice hotels. I have a list. I know the exact room. It's dialed in. And it's very expensive. Now, for me, I love it. So I love to spend extravagantly on the things I love, and I cut costs mercilessly on the things I don't. Such as I drive an old car, such as I rent my place, such as I keep my computer for many, many years. I just don't care about that stuff. And, it's funny. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I told him, I don't really care about the type of meat I buy at the grocery store. I get the cheapest one. Now I care about how much I'm eating. I have fitness goals, but he was like, you don't buy the most expensive whatever. And I was like, no, I don't care. He goes, why not? You could afford it. I go, it's not part of my rich life. For the things that are, I want to go way deep on it. And some of it is expensive. Some of it's just being able to hang with friends in the middle of the day, free. But other parts of it that I don't care about, I go, not for me. And that's why my rich life is mine and your rich life is yours.
I see another question inherent in that as well. And it's kind of like, you've implicitly defined, what is my poor life? What are those areas where I'm willing to be boring so I can be exciting? What are those areas where I'm willing to be poor so I can be extravagant?
Yeah, I would say poor is a loaded term.
Sure.
But I definitely think there are areas where I'm willing to cut back mercilessly, where it's just not worth even thinking about or spending time or money on it. And then on the other hand, where do I want to go all in? And this is the kind of dynamic I love to see in people's lives. I'm talking about money specifically, but also in other parts. I love when somebody goes, you know what, Remy, I have a friend, a reader of mine. He goes, I live a rich life. I said, how's it rich? He goes, my wife and I use your material. We retired in our mid-30s. We travel in an RV across the country. That's our rich life. Wow. Now, personally, I find that to be my personal hell. I don't want to go in an RV. I don't even want to step foot in an RV. Yeah. He and his wife love it. And I think that's awesome. Another reader, he loves miniatures. Never even thought of it. Don't even know anything about it. But that's where he gets his joy. And he can spend time and money to create that rich life. I think that sometimes we have a very paradoxical relationship with money. On one hand, we love it. We have a lot of adulation for it, envy for it. We look at pictures of Bora Bora on Instagram, but on the other hand, we hate it. It's puritanical. Oh, money's bad. If I get more money, I'm going to be an asshole. And what I love is helping people start with defining their rich life and then showing them how they can use money to live a bigger version of it. And if that means they, for example, if you love miniatures, maybe you can buy some extras. Maybe if you turn that dial way up, you can travel to South Dakota where the world's foremost miniature creator is doing it and you can take a tutorial with that person for 2 weeks. Whoa, right? We can find a way to turn that dial up and use money to live it. That's what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, man, this is why I love your book, man. It's like, it's timeless, man. It'll always be useful when it comes to money. Awesome work.
We're talking about...
Well, I was going to say, there's one thing that you talk about in your book. I'm paraphrasing, so correct me where I'm wrong. But instead of approaching money from an economic standpoint, it's more of we don't really think about the philosophy or the intellectual side of that. Does that apply to Alita's question here?
Alita's question is, it can be very large and existential, and it can be very simple and mechanical. So let's take a look at both of them. On the large existential question, what is the purpose of money? Why are we saving? I mean, you can start making arguments about, should I have more than somebody else next to me? How much is fair? And all of those questions. I have always focused on starting with the individual. So I write for one person. And that's why when you read my book, you know I'm talking to you. But I absolutely agree there are existential, structural questions. For example, we're here in LA. Housing is really expensive. And so it would be disingenuous for me to be like, hey guys, just save a bunch of money and then go buy a house. It's so easy. Like, I hate when people say that.
Yeah.
Oh, save your avocado toast. I'm like, fuck you. You don't understand how costs have escalated. So I think, and part of my philosophy is you can simultaneously acknowledge the need for systemic reform as well as take control of personal responsibility. Yeah. You can do both. And so that is what I encourage. That's why I'm politically active. That's why I want people, especially young people, poor people, minorities, to have more access to housing, right? And I want to show you how to automate your savings. So that would be the large part of Alita's question. Why should we save? Well, on a personal level, you need to save because one day you may get injured, you may not have enough to live, or you may need to provide for a family member. As for the mechanics of it, she mentioned a very offhand quick comment where she said, I don't have wealth. And so what that tells me is she has a lot of questions and thoughts about it, but it's very easy when you are not engaged in something to sort of start spinning in your head. It would be like if I don't have a podcast at all, and then I go, well, I don't know if I should use this mic or that mic, and if I use that mic, what's it going to say about me, et cetera. It's like, just get a mic and let's just start and you'll learn more from doing that.
Yeah.
So for Alita, I would say, we can actually start with, what is your rich life? Start with, if that's too big of a question, what's your perfect day? What's your perfect week? And I bet you in her perfect week, she's not going to tell me she likes spending 3 hours on laundry. I guarantee that. I bet you she's going to tell me she maybe wants to walk her dog in the middle of the afternoon. I go, okay, cool. Let's craft something like a chef. And I will show her how an extra $200 a month saved can actually lead directly to living that version of her rich life.
I love it, man.
Yeah. And what you're illustrating here is that a plan without a purpose, like, yes, I'm just saving, is sort of like a recipe without hunger. Like, here's your recipe, but I don't know why am I making all this food if I'm not hungry, right? Yeah. And so what is your rich life? What you're really saying is like, what do you hunger for in a way?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. We all intuitively understand where this can go wrong. If we think about anyone in our family or an older friend who has saved for 20, 30, 40 years, and they kept telling themselves, I need enough for retirement. When I retire, then I'm going to travel. Suddenly here they are, 60, 70, 75 years old, and they are not doing any of the things they said they would. They're not traveling. It may be because they're injured or they can't, or it may simply because they never built the skills to actually spend their money. What a tragedy. What a tragedy to go your entire life telling yourself, one day I'm going to flip the page and magically turn into this other person. And then you and I, and we all know human nature, you're not going to change. It's very difficult, especially at the age of 70 to do it. Yeah. So my encouragement for everybody here is there are some things in life that cannot wait. They cannot be done serially, like one after another. They have to be done together. Making friends is one. You can't be like, I'm not going to make friends till I'm 55. It's like, dude, you're a loner for the rest of your life. Don't do it.
That's right.
And you cannot wait. It's increasingly difficult to become physically fit later in life. It can be done, but it's much more difficult. And it is very difficult to save money and to spend money as you get later in life. That is a skill to spend money meaningfully that must be cultivated today and tomorrow. And that's what I've been really talking about recently.
Yeah.
And it's not because the universe gives you a deadline arbitrarily, like, nope, you're over 40, you can't learn anything new. It's more of these things emanate from a mindset. It's kind of like in sports, why trying to flip the switch is so dangerous. We'll play the whole season being really lazy, then we'll turn it up in the playoffs. But when you get to the playoffs, you can't escape your habits overnight. And so I love your answer here to this question, that it's really about the mindset, which is the correlation with what we talk about with minimalism here.
So did you hear that, everyone? Get rid of your storage units full of avocado toast. It's not doing anything for you. No, real quick, I just want to say one thing about minimalism, because what Alita mentioned was amazing about not just the physical stuff, but she went into all the non-physical things and how the point is to let go. I would just throw a caveat there and say minimalism, it gives you the opportunity to loosen your grip, which then presents the opportunity to let go if you want to. And it sounds like her idea and her ideology towards money, maybe she wants to loosen her grip on that because she has this firm stance on, I shouldn't save any money because that's accumulation. But if you even got to let go of the whole minimalism idea, that's okay too. Like that's what it can do for you. So save away, Alita.
Yeah. Alita, I'm going to send you a copy of I Will Teach You to Be Rich, the journal. I think you'll find immense value in it. There's also a section in there, I think we'll talk about it here on the podcast in a bit, about rewiring your beliefs around money. I think that'll be especially helpful for you. Ryan, what time is it?
You know what time it is. It's time for the lightning round, where we answer your questions from TikTok.
Yes, indeed. You can follow The Minimalists on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Minimalists. During the lightning round, we each have 60 seconds to answer your questions with a short, shareable, less than 140 character response. We put the text to these minimal maxims in the show notes so you can copy and share our pithy answers on social media. You can find those show notes at theminimalists.com/podcast. It looks like Honey has a question for us.
If the opposite of love and hate is indifference, but I'm still mad as hell, does that mean I'm still in love?
All right. So this is a throwback to, we had Dr. Courtney Warren on the show, and she was talking about how the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love and hate is indifference. So just for some context here, and that video went wild on TikTok. People were responding like, I feel what she's saying, but I still hate him so much. And what Honey is saying here is, look, I get it. Maybe the opposite of love is indifference, but I'm not indifferent right now. I'm still mad as hell for whatever happened. And I'm sorry, Honey, that something happened to you here. It's weird to say, I'm sorry, Honey.
I know. I was like,
I'm sorry,
I looked at him like, oh yeah, her name is Honey.
I'm sorry, darling.
I thought you were like, honey, let me tell you something.
So, is she still in love? Let's put 60 seconds on the clock for Ryan Nicodemus. What do you got for us, Ryan?
Anger is a symptom of broken expectations. It's not just anger, though. It's really any negative emotion. Sadness, jealousy, envy, whatever it is. Whenever we experience a negative emotion, it's because we have expected something of someone or ourselves that isn't being met. So when it comes to Honey's question, when it comes to any of our negative emotions, we have to ask ourselves, what is the expectation that is being broken? And is it worth having that expectation and risking it for all those negative emotions that we allow to come in, holding on to that thing?
I love what you're saying here. You're not saying you need to get rid of your expectations, but is it worth holding on to this expectation?
Yeah.
Let's put 60 seconds on the clock for TK Coleman.
Hatred is merely love in disgust. If I'm truly nonchalant, emotionally detached, disinterested, and indifferent, you can't make me hate you. You can't make me hate that thing you're putting in front of my face. Think about some time when maybe a little kid got mad at you and they said, well, you're a green-colored dragon with 7 heads. Did you get your feelings hurt? Did you get angry at them? You laughed, right? Because there's nothing in you that's connected to that. There's nothing in you that believes that has those questions about yourself. The only thing that can get a rise out of you is the thing that resonates with something that is burning within you. And so when we find ourselves hating people, it's because there is something about them and what they could be or what we could be together with them. And they are deviating from that so strongly that it fills us with this extreme disappointment manifesting itself as, I hate you. But if you didn't love them at one time or love them for what they could be, you would never feel that.
You can call me anything you want but a chair.
I forgot about that.
He doesn't even have a chair. We don't even give him a C word. You know, one of my favorite, I think the most joyous kid that I've ever met is our friend Griffin House, the very talented musician, his youngest daughter, Clara. And the first time we went over to his house in Nashville, his daughter, the first time I ever met her, she walks up behind me and she whispers in my ear, I could set you on fire right now.
I think she meant it as a compliment.
What's the compliment?
I don't know. It was some kind of metaphor she had going on in her head that
She was thinking, you're well known, but I could really blow you up.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But what she's saying is like, you're the green dragon. I don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
It was cute. But if Jordan just came up to me mid-podcast and said, I could set you on fire right now. I mean, I'm going to see it as a threat.
Yeah.
So context is everything here. Give me 60 seconds. I'd love to share something with Honey. You are not in love. Love is in you. Yes, you may be really pissed off at the person that you love. They may make you angry, and you may feel like, I hate you. And you may be struggling to find that indifference, or maybe you're just struggling to find the calm that you want. Maybe you had a terrible breakup. Maybe you had a relationship that just ended in a way you didn't want it to end, and now you feel pissed, you feel upset, you feel offended. You're not wrong for that. Your emotions aren't wrong. You feel how you feel. But also understanding that it's not about being in love with that person. The love that you experience means you're witnessing them. You're also witnessing the anger that you feel. You're witnessing those so-called negative emotions, and you're seeing how they make you feel. And as soon as you see them, that's when you're able to drop them. Let's check in with our Patreon live stream here in a moment. But first, real quick, for our Right Here, Right Now segment, here's one thing that's going on in the life of the minimalist. Speaking of breakups, Ryan, bye-bye to social Jess. Actually, this isn't a breakup at all.
No.
Jess is finally graduating from the Minimalists.
Yeah.
We've been working with her for 8 years now. We had a very long tour in 2014, and then in 2015, she came on board. She's been all over the world with us. She's been monitoring and posting on our social media for almost a decade now. And then we sent her off on maternity leave. When was this? Back in the fall of last year. And she was on maternity leave for 3 months. She came back, and then she gave us a call a couple weeks ago, and she was like, hey, I'm not able to do this job with the same level of quality that I once brought to it because my life circumstances have changed. And I would feel bad staying in this predicament, putting you in this predicament. And she goes, this is the most difficult phone call I've ever had to make. And I'm like, oh, I don't want it to be a difficult phone call. We totally understand.
Yeah.
Just because your life circumstances have changed and we've done our best to accommodate you and you've done your best to accommodate us. The thing that fits before may not fit in the future. And so she's decided that she wants to leave full-time work to the side. She needs to let go, at least for this chapter of her life, of full-time work. And to that, I say, brava for that realization. I'm glad you're in a circumstance where you can do that. But Jess, we love you, and we're so grateful for the many years that you've spent with us. I remember when she first called me when she was pregnant, and I was sitting here in this chair, and we were on FaceTime together. And so this is almost a year ago now. And she goes, Josh, I got to tell you something. I'm pregnant. And I don't know why. My subconscious came to the forefront, TK. And you know what my first words to her were? Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
What? It was almost, I was conflating something in my head,
Yeah.
like maybe my wife was calling me and telling me this,
Right.
which still, that response in that moment would not be a very good response. But I said, oh, nope, we've got your back. This is awesome for you. You something you really want. Wonderful. And that illustrates perfectly what we were talking about earlier with Ramit, especially on the private podcast, how your version of a rich life might look appreciably different from my version of a rich life. So if I try to hand you my template of what a meaningful life looks like, we've identified the 100 things you need to own, the job, one of the 3 jobs you must have, and exactly how much money you must contribute to charity every year. And there you'll have your meaningful life. And then you do all those things. You're like, wait a minute. I actually feel more stressed out. I feel more overwhelmed. This life isn't for me. Oh, okay. It's because what a meaningful life looks like for you might be different from what it looks like for me.
When I talked to her, I told her she'd never work in this town again.
She's like, I don't plan on coming back to LA.
I'm like, you better not. No, it was funny. She was like, I don't want to let you down. I don't want you to be mad at me. And it was interesting because it's hard to let go. I mean, when something changes, especially that's, something that's been around for 8 years, like it's never easy to let go of that past, that nostalgia. But no, she's wonderful. And like, I was like, dude, I'm happy for you. Like, it's great that you're able to go out and start this new chapter in your life. And thanks for being with us when you were. And if you need a good recommendation, we got your back on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember, Ryan, when you and I worked the same corporation in the corporate world, we would often know that we're hiring someone, but there's maybe a 2-year, 3-year term limit on their job there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, well, actually, we're only hiring lifers, because you get a particular kind of person who's a lifer, right? But maybe it's also like, I'm helping this person through the next chapter of their life. And if I can support them in a way that enhances their life, then they're probably going to show up as the best version of themselves for those 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what happened with Jess. My favorite Jess story is we got to a point maybe 2 years in that she was so disorganized. She was a pillar of disorganization. It was chaos. Her organization system sucked. And she knew it. She just couldn't get a hold of it. And eventually Ryan and I had to have this conversation with her like, hey, I'm sorry, but this just isn't working out. Can we help you get better organized? Like, I don't think she even understood how disorganized she was. She just knew there was chaos everywhere. And she turned it around over the course of the next 6 months, turned it around so much that she is now the paragon of organization. Anytime Mallory or Sean or Jordan or Danny or anyone else needs to organize something, I say, hey, you need to go talk to Jess, because she can organize. She can show you exactly how she creates her flow charts and her asana board and her calendars and all of these things. Not so you can mimic it exactly, but you can get a few ingredients from her and create your own version to, organize to provide order to the chaos. So Jess, we love you. You can follow her on social media. Jess Breathes on Instagram and we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. But Jess, you will always have a very, very special part in this chapter called The Minimalists. We're so grateful for you. Let's tune into the Patreon live stream.
Love you, Jess.
We have a question here from Ella. She says, my husband says we need whole life insurance because of our high net worth as an investment. We've had this policy for 10 years, but should we cancel this policy and cut our losses?
So we're going to dive into this on the private podcast quite a bit. In fact, we talk about 3 financial myths that are total scams. They're nonsense that you want to avoid. And one of those is whole life insurance. Nothing wrong with term life insurance, but when you're buying insurance, you're not investing. When I buy car insurance or home insurance or flood insurance or hurricane insurance or business insurance, it is insurance in case something goes wrong. It's an emergency fund in a way. You're investing in an emergency. You're not actually making an investment in your future, so to speak. So whole life insurance, we're going to talk about why that is quite often a scam. Actually, it's always a scam, even when people don't have the intention to scam you. It's not the best investment for your money. We're going to talk about some other myths that we want to bust in terms of your finances as well. We'll check back in with the Patreon live stream as well. But in the meantime, Malabam, what else you got for us?
Here's a minimalist insight from one of our listeners.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Josh. This is Lisa from Minnesota. My advice to your listeners who are moving and are wondering what to take and what to leave behind is, imagine you are in your new home and you open a box and there is the thing that you are wondering about whether you want to take. And are you thinking, wow, I'm so glad to see this. I cannot wait to use this in my new home. Or are you thinking, oh man, what the heck was I thinking? Why did I pack this? What the heck am I going to do with this? So hopefully this will make things more clear to you listeners. Thanks.
All right, y'all, that's our minimal episode for today. We'll see you on Patreon for the full 3-hour maximal edition of episode 388, which includes answers to a bunch more questions like, how much money is enough money? How does the cost of living factor into financial planning? And what are some practical ways that we can battle inflation? Plus, we've got a million more questions for Ramit and the Minimalists. And we have an argument about our friend Dave Ramsey. Ramit thinks he's not on the same page as Dave, and we'll try to unpack that on the private podcast. Also this week, a private minimalist home tour from one of our listeners. It is one of the most remarkable playrooms/bedrooms that I have ever seen. We also have a sucky ad segment that really makes TK upset. I thought he was going to walk out of the studio at one point. Oh, was he upset? Plus, we have much, much more of less. And if you want to hear all that, check out the Minimalist private podcast this week over at patreon.com/theminimalists, or click the link in the description to subscribe and get your personal link so that our weekly Maximal episodes play in your favorite podcast app. You'll also gain access to all of our podcast archives all the way back to episode 001. And if you're still on the fence, here's a testimonial from one of our lovely Patreon supporters. Kayla says, I wasn't sure whether I'd like the Minimalist podcast having a third host added to the show, but you guys made the right choice bringing TK on board. I love the private podcast discussions. They're entertaining, meaningful, and insightful. Kayla, thank you so much.
Yeah. Kayla, I'm dedicating today's Christmas song to you. Much love.
What an honor.
Big thanks to Ramit Sethi for joining us today. We'll put a link to his new journal as well as his new Netflix series in the show notes. And if you leave here today with just one message, let it be this. Love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.